How's it going? I'm here with Todd Gallina.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, and he has an animated movie coming out, a short film, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned it on my podcast earlier, and now I brought him in. He's actually local, so it's great to have him come down. So if you want to tell the people a little bit about yourself, and then, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Todd Gallina. I've been a big fan of comics. I grew up going to Comic-Con. Actually had the chance to meet Jack Kirby, the first Comic-Con I ever went to in 1986, which is just a great memory.
Was it the San Diego Comic-Con?
San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah, it was all of my friends in high school. They got to go to Hawaii for their senior trip. And me and a buddy, we went to San Diego Comic-Con. We stayed at a hotel called the Westgate, which was super famous. It's the first time I'd ever seen like a robe inside a hotel room.
Where did they have the Comic-Con during that time?
It was the San Diego Convention Center,
Okay, so
which is much not the same one we're seeing. It's a smaller one. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, and it was near this Westgate Hotel. And yeah, I got on a shuttle bus, and it was just me. And in the very back was Jack Kirby. He had his art. I couldn't believe it. It was at a time when Kirby was a little out of favor, maybe with fans, seen as maybe an older artist. But I had a chance to say hello and how much I enjoyed his work. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but it's one of my fondest memories of being at Comic-Con.
How old are you?
How old was I when
Yeah,
I was 18 years old, I think, when I was high school graduate. Yeah.
So the fact that you can still hold on to that memory obviously made a lasting impact. So that goes to show that it is a very fond memory.
Yeah.
Did you know who started San Diego Comic-Con?
Well, I've read two books about it, and I think there was a Scott Shaw's in that group. He's one of the more memorable ones, but who was it?
Jack Kirby.
Oh, okay.
So I just did a video on it. So what happened is there's a guy, he was from the East Coast, he came here, and there's some kids that really, the way the story paints it, was like there's like 13-year-olds all the way to like 40-year-olds, and
Yes.
they love comics, and so they just hung out together. And they did like a trial run, and they went to Jack Kirby for advice. And then Jack Kirby is like, look, you got to have not just comics, you got to have like horror, sci-fi, you got to lump it together. You got to have speakers. Like Jack Kirby gave him like the platform on how to do it. Like people have booths, all this kind of stuff. And so the very first one, he said, do your dry run, I guess it's called, and then I'll come to the very first one. So he went to the very first one.
Wow.
And he kind of helped guide them and set it up and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And he was up in
He was in like Sherman Oaks.
yeah, Sherman Oaks. They went up there. It was like kids from like 13 all the way to like 30 something, and Jack Kirby's wife cooked him hamburgers, drew him some art, and they hung out for the day. And yeah, it was very
So I'd heard some stories like that, and you just can't believe it, how open of a guy he was. And this group, like you mentioned, this contingent, it's like reminds me of like the early version of like Stranger Things. Like these kids on their bikes, they go to Kirby's house, there he is drawing. But his stuff really stands up, and I'm a big fan of everything he's done for the industry. And so it was great to meet him. To go back to your original question. With all of that in mind, I've always wanted to make an animated series, and so my background was as a Flash animator. So I really made a lot of inroads for this application called Flash, which was the first kind of animation tool that took off for the web. And at the time, YouTube, where you're dominating, didn't exist. It couldn't process video, so
What year was this?
This is 99, 2000.
The only thing I would watch Flash stuff, but the one thing I remember from Flash was Homestar Runner. Do you remember?
Of course.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. I remember Homestar Runner.
The classic.
Yeah.
We need to find that guy.
I don't know. I think it's still around.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good stuff that came from that, but computers can only process like vector graphics, so animation really took off on the web, and so I was part of that, and I really enjoyed it. But then it kind of cratered around when the bubble burst.
How did you do the Flash animation? How does that work?
I was a traditional illustrator, so what I would do is I would take my pencil drawings, I'd scan them, and then or I'd ink them and scan them. And there were tools that could break your line drawings into vector lines that you could then manipulate. And so that was how I first started it. So it was a lot of fun just to do. I was classically like an illustrator, and now my illustrations could move and then I could tell some silly stories.
So did you have to like basically frame 1 and then you'd move the arm? That'd be like frame 2, and then move like that. Is that how it worked? Or you drew every frame?
No, not at all. And
Okay.
that's what made Flash so prolific, is that it uses this thing called, like, it's like a timeline way of editing, same way you might edit video, but you can hold the character or whatever you're doing static and take a line and say, hey, I want this straight line to then become a curved line 5 frames into the animation. So it's a way of streamlining and speeding up the animation process.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I never used Flash. I just remember that I would always get like some pop-up saying your Flash is outdated. You need to update it.
Oh man, it was like, think about it. I mean, it was a really big deal, and what killed Flash ultimately was Apple just wouldn't support it. And so once we started to move over to devices, it didn't work out anymore. It's still something supported by Adobe, but so when that ended, I kind of took more of a creative director role, corporate role, and that's been great. But all the while, I've had 3 really good ideas in my life. And I'm like, I really got to take off on one of these ideas. And so one day I'm in the movie theater with my son, and we're watching this movie called Chronicle. And I don't know if you ever saw this.
Is that the one where Chronicle? Is that the one where it's like found footage? Is that
Kind of. So there's these 3 high school boys that run into like a alien
Dane
force.
DeHaan or something like that?
Yeah,
the guy, he ended up playing the Green Goblin.
Yes, so he was in there, and then the guy who plays Creed, he's really famous. I'm forgetting his name.
Michael B. Jordan, right?
Yes.
Michael B. Jordan. He was in it?
Yes,
Yeah, he was in it.
Yep.
That was a good movie.
It was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it was like my first idea. I'm like, what happens if like 3 high school kids get superpowers from an alien force, and one is like, what would it do to them? So I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so there's one idea gone.
Yeah.
So I just really kind of tackled my next idea, which is Force 5, the animated project that you so graciously invited me to talk.
Yeah.
About
So I
today.
wanted to talk to you about that. So I want to go into like more details. So you have a short film, right?
Yes.
And so how long is this film?
It's 20 with credits. It's 28 minutes.
20 minutes. So so it's like episode.
Correct.
Somewhere around there. And how long did it take you to create this? I'm talking about from beginning to end.
Initial sketch to San Diego Comic-Con's premiere in July, 12 years.
12 years?
Yeah.
Wow. So did you sketch out kind of storyboard it?
Yeah, so the first time I did it was all thumbnail storyboards. And so that's basically, you take what story you want to tell, and before you invest heavily in like the visual design of everything, I just make a tremendous amount of squares on a giant piece of paper, and I just do little thumbnails of how the story's going to go. And there's
Very like non-detailed sketch kind of?
correct, mostly just how blocking out like just like little scenes, the dialogue, setting up the jokes.
So did you have a script written, or did you storyboard first?
Started from the storyboard.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a visual person more than a writer.
Honestly, that's how I think it would be better to do. Like kind of like paint the scenes how you want it to go, and then fill in the dialogue later, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's very cool.
Yeah, so we learned this process of pitching when I was pitching a show to Nickelodeon during my Flash days, and what they like to see is they like to see someone stand up and just rapidly show images and describe what they're seeing. That's their pitch process. At least it was at the time. And so you didn't need to provide a script. You need to kind of act through your story. So it was basically the creator and the artwork, and you pitch the story that way. And then at that point, it would get greenlit into making a pilot. So that's kind of what I was doing here. That was phase 1, was just the tiny little sketches.
Okay. So you started with the sketches, the storyboard, and then from there, what kind of happened?
Well, from there, so this was it was a side hustle. So basically, I'm working on that while I'm doing these other things, and I just really needed. I was a decently well-known Flash animator, but this next project I knew needed to be handled by people who were professionals. So the very first thing I did is I wanted to go out and find a real director and someone who's worked in the industry. And so I was given 3 or 4 names, and I ended up really connecting really well with a gentleman named David Marshall. He's been a long time director, and we just got along really well. And so I sat down with him, and he's like, "Hey Todd, listen, the only way I'll do this project with you is you have a good idea, and you have 4 or 5 characters in here, but you need to know these characters as if they were like real people. So I need you to write the backstory for all 5 characters." And I was instantly like kind of put off. I was like,
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's not why I'm not a good writer. I'm like, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough to make this story work.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I want to know like where they went to high school, if they've ever had a love in their life, some bad things." And so it turns out that was one of the greatest weekends in this project, because I just put myself in a room, and I wrote their backstories, and I kind of fell in love with like all of them, and they're all a little bit different. Those character outlines that I wrote for them, they didn't make it all the way to this scene, because I don't think I can do the voice for a couple of the characters, but there are some voices that I don't think I would be good at representing.
Yeah.
So then I brought in some additional writers to write those characters.
Okay, so from storyboard to director, how long was that? Like, how long did it take to get to there?
Well, I pitched the thumbnail thing, and it was a complete flop. Like,
Really?
nobody got it, and I was all, dude. So I had to get over that kind of rejection, and that's when I kind of pulled. So that was probably 3 years from when that happened to when I was then working with Dave, was probably 3 years.
Now, did you animate everything yourself?
Everything was done by me up until I met David.
Okay.
To get David involved, I had to do what I call like a teaser, and I still have that teaser. It's pretty hilarious, but that's all done in Flash.
Oh, okay.
And he looked at that and he was like, "Okay, I think you got something here."
Okay. And then from there, you got a director, you started fleshing out the characters. What I found very interesting is it's kind of interesting how you'll go through life and you'll like push back maybe on certain ideas, kind of like you push back on having to write these characters, like their backstory.
Yeah.
But then when you do it, you find a new love for it and a new appreciation thing. It's almost like, oh, this is kind of like almost like a growing moment because I know George Lucas, he would have backstories for the random character in the background that has no lines. And he's like, this is where it came from, this is the whole story, all this kind of stuff. And it just makes you more appreciate that character. So I guess when you would put him on film or whatever, you have this new love for this character and you want to put this character, even though it's a background character, in the best light possible.
Yeah.
So
well, what happens is when you start to develop further stories, you start to say, would this character do this or not?
exactly.
And you can't say that unless you have a backstory, and which makes them more 3-dimensional.
Exactly. And so I think you're 100% right there, where it's like, if you're trying to turn this into a series, like maybe you take this non-existent characters in your pilot or your short film, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this character, because he did this, this, and this in this made-up backstory, would be perfect for this specific role right here.
Yeah.
So, and then you can bring him out and all that kind of stuff. So that's very interesting. So then you get a director, and now what's the process? Now you have to animate. You have to.
Yeah. So now so I'm very blessed in that David was willing to come in as a partnership. So there, no real money had been spent to this point.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. And so
right now it's all sweat equity.
Exactly. Mostly mine, and now
Yeah.
it's soon going to be his. And once we kind of agree on what that's going to be, we start kind of pulling in our own resources. His resources are vast.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, the first thing we have to do is let's finalize the script. Let's write it. So I did a first draft. He changed it, and then we brought in a third writer who also kind of punched it up. Again, it helped add voices to some of the characters. And then we brought it to a storyboard artist, great guy. And we did a first version of the storyboard. And so we started to see what everything was going to look like.
So I've always heard this, and I'm not really in this field at all, but they'll give it to another scriptwriter to punch it up. What exactly does punching it up mean?
Well, so for punching it up means, okay, here for me what it means, and again, I'm no Hollywood insider, but for me it's like, hey, we have 4 jokes that really, really land here. we see opportunities for maybe another 2 or 3. Can you go through this? And there might be a moment where 3 characters are kind of arguing. Can you help punch some of this stuff up for us?
Okay.
Or we might have jokes that we think are funny, but they're just not.
Yeah.
And believe me, dude, when that thing screened at San Diego Comic-Con, there are things in my head where I'm like, here comes the funniest joke of all. And then you're like listening, and it's like, not the reaction I thought I'd get, you know?
Yeah.
But then meanwhile, something else where it's like a super benign thing that I might not have been a fan of. People are howling, and you're like, so that was the first audience reaction. Okay. So
I'm a musician. And so when I make like a song or something like that, I'll show it to maybe a couple friends and, you know, maybe get the reaction or something like that. But most of the time I send it out online and then people listen to it and, you know, I don't get to see the reaction. It's probably very different because when you're done with your product and if you're in the screening, you get to instantly see however many people there, their honest reaction as they're watching the thing. So that's how was that?
Okay, so first of all, you're an awesome musician. I just want to say that
thank
you. For those of you who might not have had a chance to hear David's work, he's got something going here. So I'm really looking forward to hearing and seeing more of that. Yeah. But for me, it was pretty terrifying because in general, when you're a creator, you learn not to fall in love with your own stuff because
so hard though.
Yeah. And then when you produce a lot of stuff, like when you produce a lot, I've learned that I don't get married to very many things, but I was married to this. This is my
100%.
Baby.
100%.
Yeah.
It is so hard.
Yeah.
Like, I know. It's very hard. That's why I've learned that hiring like an outside, like in your terms, like a director or something like that, or like in my terms, like a producer, it just speeds things up so much because I'll just one guitar part, I'll sit on there, spend all day on it. Come back the next day. I hate it. Redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
Redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like
we've just met, and I have a sense you're a bit of a perfectionist.
Well, when it comes to my own stuff, 100%.
Yeah.
100%, because it's so hard to separate how much you love this creation you're creating, whether it's your short film, your animation, or music. It's like you love it so much, and you just want it to be the best that it could possibly be, and to give it out in the world. And then a lot of times people don't even notice the little details you put into things. You're like,
yeah, but when
you don't notice that cowbell? How do you not notice that cowbell? And they're like, didn't hear it.
Yeah, one of the most gratifying moments is when you walk up to that person who did notice it, and you're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I desperately needed that validation.
Exactly.
But, so as it relates to like, you know, putting it out there, one of the things that David taught me, his name is David Marshall, he taught me that you never finish, you just run out of time. And it's true. You have to deliver. Creators who just sit and noodle with something forever, like, you know, so I sketch. If I do a drawing, then I could do some cross hatching if I have some more time. Then I can bring out my colored pencils. And you could almost never finish something.
I call every song I do a demo because it's never finished. It's just released.
Right, but when your band starts to produce and publish, and when you have fans of your music, you're going to want to give them something. So you're going to have to deliver at some point, and it's never done. So you run out of time. So when you talked about the screening, it was just time. It was time to show it. We kept everything very insular. So the only people who saw it were people who were going to be adding to it. So we would bring in our musician, for example, musician who's incredible. You know, he added some new things to it that I didn't expect. So he was additive, but he also saw the film, and so we got a little bit of feedback from him, and that's the way it was. We never really showed it to anybody kind of outside our creative bubble, and I'm not suggesting that that's the way to do it. That's the way that we did it because it's my first piece, and I'm easily influenced, unfortunately. So if I show it to somebody who really, really matters to me, even if it's like a friend who's not in animation, and they make a comment, it's going to stick with me. And then I might go back to the team and want to change it. And if everybody did that, everybody on the team who's putting into this project does that. The fear is that it just becomes something that you never intended it to be. So we kept it in a bubble. So when I put it out there for the first time, this was something that I loved. Like I was like, it might not be finished, but I love this thing. Mm-hmm. And so it was hard. I mean, I'm watching it for the first time, like in a dark room with a lot of people, and what I tried to do is just stay in the moment. But I was hearing how people were reacting to it, and in general, I was pretty pleased. I was very pleased. There was one fan at Comic-Con. I got to go find this fella. He got every single joke we did, and he was a good laugher. And you need that in an audience. You can't have these like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely a nice ego boost, you know, where like someone like, you know, validates everything. Like, yes, you got it, you got the joke, and you're laughing, and yeah, I know that feeling. It's a very good feeling.
It's awesome.
So from director to screening, your first screening, that was what? How many years?
So now that's a big chunk because we brought how many years? I'm gonna say probably 6.
Okay. I just find all this whole process fascinating because it's like in the back of my mind, I'm just like, oh, I'd love to do something like this. So I'm like, okay, how long does this take? Okay, all that kind of stuff, you know, because I love to create. So
yeah.
So it took about 6 years from basically director to final, at least screening ready.
Right. So David, I just want to tell you, like, when I was doing Flash animation, I'd have an idea, I'd sketch it, I'd animate it, and I'd have that stuff done in a month.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way to do it really fast. I mean, but with this process, as I wanted it to be done as professional as possible. Like when it screens, I wanted someone to say, "Hey, I might not like this, but this is competitive with like a Pixar movie. This is
Yes.
theatric. It's like it might not be what I like, but it looks extremely professional. It sounds professional actors. So what I learned is that process takes a long time.
Oh, 100%. Especially when you're basically, you know, fronting this yourself for the most part. How much did this all in cost?
Well, so our cost, I had to raise $450,000. So probably all in, it was probably a little over $500,000. And it doesn't have to be that much. And really, it should have cost a lot more. I had very, very, very talented people when I offered them the opportunity to just straight be paid, or come in and take a little bit of equity in the property. It was 100% up to them. I was very blessed that some of the most expensive parts of this creation were done with the creator or the creative team taking equity.
That's awesome. I honestly think that is always the better way to go because then you are doing something you actually believe in, number one. So if you're, say, an artist on there, you're doing this and you actually believe in it, so you actually want to make it the best possible versus just getting a paycheck and then you're done with the project and you go away. It's the same with like when actors take like back end and take a smaller upfront fee. It's like, yeah, if you believe in this project, and you're putting your time and heart and soul into it, might as well take equity over a cash payment. That's how I think of it.
And you're absolutely right. And so this model, so I learned a lot about starting a business, funding a business, and then getting people to buy in. When I was working in the technology industry, I had a lot of great mentors. One of which is a fellow named Hayes Drumright, very successful, and he was very good at getting buy-in. So when I did this, this model doesn't exist in animation, where I can go to an art director who is very famous and does very, very well. But this art director who might have been the nuts and bolts of something that's been insanely profitable is still only going to get what they were paid for the project. So what I'm hoping to do is with the people that came in and helped here, we're all gonna see the financial benefit if this thing really takes off. It's not just me, and I don't really care about me. It's going to be David, our art director, our writer. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And they deserve it. Going back to the Kirby thing, I mean, he's a perfect example. How rich should the Kirby estate be right now? How rich?
Probably very rich.
Yeah.
Sell a couple of those original arts. I don't know if they still have them or what they did with them, but because back in the day, comic book artists would just, when they were done with their arts, what are we going to do with this? And they would have it. And I remember I read some story where this kid would get sandwiches for the artists and they would pay him in original art. And you're like, here you go.
It's one of the greatest trades of all time.
I know. So back to your short film. So the idea of this is to basically similar to, was it 30 Days a Night? Do you know that story?
Steve Niles. Yeah.
So he had a script. No one wanted it. So he made it into a graphic novel,
Yes.
which then did well, which then that got picked up into a movie franchise. Now they're making another one. I think it's
It was one of the. That was great.
yeah. So is it similar to that? Like you have this short film and you're trying to now get it picked up, right?
Correct.
And what does picked up mean?
Well, that market has been really disrupted, David. So, and we're entering at a very difficult time.
Disrupted. What do you mean?
Well, like for example, our marketplace in which we can. This is a pilot. It's a film, but it's really a pilot. It's the first episode of a series. We are trying to get a series distribution for a series.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at people that do the distribution for that, what the marketplace used to look like for us you'd have a bunch of linear networks, for example, like Nickelodeon, a Cartoon Network, the Disney Channel, Comedy Central. These were all places that I was pitching before I made it. So we'd go in and we'd do a pitch. We'd pitch DreamWorks, we'd pitch Apple, and ultimately, they would pass, or they'd offer us like what they call a production deal, which means they would take it in and work on it themselves, and you'd be at an arm's length. That's when I said, I'm just going to make it. So 3 years later now, I've made it, and here it is. The marketplace has changed.
Streaming.
So streaming is huge, but linear is destroyed. So if you look at a company if you look at like a Disney Channel linear, they might have one new series this year, where 10 years ago they'd have a whole fall schedule. They all would.
No.
So they've all stepped back, and they're not really buying anything. And then you look at the streamers, and what we learned with the streamers with the writer's strike is that Netflix was spending a lot of money on new content, a lot of money. The writer's strike happens, now they can't get any new content, and they don't lose any subscribers, or they go out and they borrow it from foreign countries and they put it up. Subscribers stay the same. So now what they say is, well, we don't have to spend any more on it. Like, it doesn't hurt us.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are smaller than them, you take Amazon, I wouldn't say is smaller, but they have a similar, they watch what Netflix does, because they're
the king.
They're the king. And rightfully so, they've earned it, right?
Yeah.
This is no knock on Netflix, they're a business. But Amazon looks at that and they're like, okay, so we would probably do the same thing. Why are we spending so much? So everyone kind of pulls back. So we're entering a marketplace with something that I'm really excited about, that is kind of like turnkey. Like, we can just give you the episodes, right? Mm-hmm. And people are very cautious about what they're going to pay for. And so that's kind of what we're entering into. So as we premiere this, as we screen it at Comic-Con, my hope is just to create some excitement for the project while we're trying to get distribution.
So basically you have the first episode, and if you wanted to make a season, 8 to 12 episodes probably?
20, yeah.
20? You're going to old school 20 in a season?
That's a whole nother podcast about what is an actual season number of episodes.
Let me tell you, I have ranted and raved how much I hate how the shows come out today are literally 6 episodes, 8 episodes a season, and then I have to wait 4 years for the second season, and it's another 6 or 8 episodes. And I'm like, I remember back in the day where it'd be you get 20 to 25 episodes.
Yeah.
And then they would take 3 months off.
Yeah.
And then boom, you got another whole season of 20 to 25 episodes again. And I'm like, why can't, especially when you find a good show and you're like, it's over. It was like 4 hours.
I know. So it's what you're talking about, like Rick and Morty. I don't know if you're a Rick and Morty fan.
Oh, huge Rick and Morty fan.
It destroys you. First of all, you don't know how many are going to come out. You're like, first episode. And next thing you know, 8 episodes in, and they're like, whatever. They're like, season finale. And I'm like, oh, no.
And then it's like, okay, you think next year? No, it's like 2 years. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I don't understand. What is happening? Why? Like, their animation isn't that great, where it's like, oh man, it's very detailed and all this kind of stuff. I'm not knocking on the animation, but I just feel like, how can it just makes me so mad. It just makes me so mad because
as a fan, you want more. Mm-hmm. I don't know if did you watch Primal?
Yes.
Oh, that's like a masterpiece.
So I watched Primal and I was like, I feel like I'm watching like just pure art. Like not what's like going on, not like the story, the plot, but every scene. It's like that beautiful like watercolor almost esque look. And this like the drawings, I was just like, it was just beautiful like watch. I loved it. I loved Primal. That was great. And that was, I think, 2 seasons, but they were like years apart.
Oh, I know. And it's crushing that it ended.
Yeah.
Yeah, big fan of Primal.
It ended well though.
Oh, it sure did.
It did. It ended. I was like, I'm satisfied with the ending. I would love to see more of it. I fell in love with the dinosaur. I'm a big animal lover, so it's like when there's an animal on screen, I'm like, screw the humans. Another thing that which I wish they would have done. There's this new movie coming out called Wild Robot.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the animation looks great. I love it, but I was like, please don't make the robot talk. I just love like a 2-hour long movie of just more of like body language, because you can get that. You don't need talking. Primal proved that.
I was just going to say that. Primal proved it.
And it's like, if you had this movie about this robot trying to figure out basically how to exist beyond being, a slave to whatever it's programming.
Right.
And learning through animals and stuff like that. It's like, there's so many animals and stuff that's like, you don't need any talk. But then I saw another trailer and they started talking. I'm like,
You know what's funny about that? You know what's hilarious about that is, I'm a big fan of animation. I'll see anything in the theater, and I'm looking forward to that. But what turned me off to that was the voice.
yeah, it was the voice.
I didn't. It's something about it, and so it's funny. You and I are feeling the same way. I will see it for sure.
Yeah.
Because it does look gorgeous, and
tugs on those heartstrings, and that's why I was like, it's like music and movies. It's like you don't watch, you don't hear, you feel. That's how when I absorb content, is like you need to feel. So
yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. That's one of the key things that David said had to happen in this, and ours has a robot in it. Robot talks, David.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of mouth movement, so it's.
Iron Giant talked.
Exactly, similar.
Yeah.
And we also have an animal. We also have it. Yes, we do. I don't want to. Well, I'll just tell you, we have a kitten. And this kitten only has 3 legs, so extra pull at the heartstrings.
You abusing your power of animation. Yeah. There's this one little. I don't even know what it's on. It might have been Disney. They make these like little animated shorts, like they're like 5 or 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And they made this one. I think it was called Kit Bull, and it was about a kitten that was in like the garbage, and there was a pit bull, and this pit bull was like mean to the kitten. And so you're thinking, oh, this pit bull's like mean, like this cat just wants to get this food. And then the pit bull's like trying to eat it, but chained up, so it can't quite reach it. And this kitten's like playing with it, like messing with it.
Yeah.
And then you find out why it's so mean, because what happens is then the owners will come back and they'll take the pit bull in and they use it for dog fighting. Oh. And so then he comes back out after, he's all bloody, he's limping. And so the kitten realizes, wow, this, dog has this horrible life, and so ends up freeing him. They become friends and they run off into the sunset.
Oh, what a beautiful short! I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's great. This pulls on every heartstring. It's like 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
So, but I love animation. I feel like with animation done right, you can convey a better message or emotion than you can with film.
Yeah, and I think going back to Primal, it's so funny we're talking so much about that. Yeah. It's like a lesson in simplicity. Mm-hmm. It's completely minimalist. The line, everything about it is just very simple. Dialogue, very sparse, almost used at. There's almost none.
No, there is none. He grunts, then you understand.
Yes.
That connection. The dinosaur just growls. He grunts. I think his name is Spear.
Yeah. Never stated though. You have to look it up to find his name.
Yeah, that's true. And you understand.
Yes.
They even have a relationship towards the end of the second season, and they both don't speak the same language, and they understand. And that's why I'm thinking it's just like, with body language, you don't need dialogue. Dialogue is just a small percentage.
Right.
So
yeah. You and I are big Primal fans.
Yeah. It was a great show.
Yeah.
I liked it. I didn't like the fact that it was like years apart.
Of course. So back to the 20 episode thing. This was I wanted to do less. Let's just put it that way. It's just it's easier to do less.
Yeah.
You have to come up with less stories. You can pack them with more in. But we have a plan for season 1, and that plan includes just a large story arc and different things that are going to happen to the team as we go through it. We're malleable on how long that needs to be, as long as we have the beginning and the end of the story arc. There's a big there's a study that just came out that said shows that animated series that do not have like a singular episode, there's a term for it, that have just a really long arc are not watched multiple times. So if you watch it, like Gravity Falls is an example. Gravity Falls is a great show. It was on Disney. It has a rather long story that it's telling, and it's freaking awesome. But people won't go back maybe to episode 7 and just watch that when it comes on because they know it's a piece. It's the 7th piece of a longer story.
It's kind of like the biggest shows are like The Office and Friends, like old shows where you can just pop it on a random episode and you don't need to understand the whole story. So similar to that.
Yes, it's exactly right. And so now we've had to rethink our plan where I do want an overarching story for a season, but these have to be singular episodes.
Interesting. So now you have this basically a pilot, and from there, are you now going to shop it to different networks and try to? Does the way it work is they just give you money to finish off the series, or do you kind of have to finish off the series, and once it's finished, then they will pay you for the whole series?
Every company has a different model. So some are give us the idea, we'll pay you for the idea, we'll take it all in house and we'll deliver it. And you'll have, maybe we'll bring your director, maybe we'll bring you, Todd, in as a producer to oversee it. That's one model. The other model is we share costs where, like we already have, I know where it's going to be animated. The animation house that did this short is awesome. So they're going to do it. And so
Are they local?
No, they're really good. They're in Taipei. The whole long story about that, but very, very creative folks. We were at that studio. One of the animators would dress. I didn't know this. I went there and I showed up. One of the animators that worked on our character TJ, who's an artificial human, he would dress like him. And so I walked in. He's wearing this animator's wearing bright green, and I mean, dude, talk about like hitting you right here. I was like, wow,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
nice to know that they're into the animation so much that they bonded with that character, and so that they're giving it their all when they're animating it.
Yes. The other projects they're working on, I just think they might not be as exciting. These people. This animation house loves this project, so it's staying with them. So what we would do is we would go to somebody who would do distribution. I'll just use Netflix because it's an easy example. Yeah. And what they would do is, they'd pay us to deliver content to them, and then it's just a matter of how long they own it. What would be great for us is...
So this wouldn't be a Netflix... Let's say you wouldn't enter in like a Netflix-only deal. You would enter a license agreement?
Well, I don't think Netflix would allow that to have it on multiple, to have it streaming elsewhere. But
not at the same time. But how they lease something for like 5 years.
Yes,
and then
that's the model we want. Of course, everything's negotiable. We have no control over things. That's what we want. We just want to keep it. So, the scariest thing that can happen is you create something that you love. It goes over to. I hate to keep using Netflix, but let's say it goes to Netflix. Netflix starts to develop it. They find out that they don't really love animation is not really working, and so they stop producing it, and they still own it. And so you as the creator, you're sitting and you're looking at it there, and you're like, I can never get it out of Netflix to even bring it to someone else. So it just stays there static. And this has happened with comic book creators for sure.
Happens in music all the time. They'll own the artist, then they're like, we don't like the album, or we don't want to pay to market it. So then the artist spent 2 years making this album, and they can't do anything with it. It's called shelved, and they get shelved, and then they don't own their own name, so they can't write new songs. They don't have any money, and then a lot of artists just give up. There's nothing they can do. What are you going to make a side project? And a lot of times they'll own that side project too. Like it depends how your deal works out. They might own you in anything you create versus the band, right? So it's very, there's a lot of bad dealings that can happen, and it could go sideways very quickly.
It's that would be a nightmare. I'd rather it not. I'd rather just keep this short and own the short for the rest of my life and be happy with it than have it go somewhere and me be at an arm's length.
Yeah.
So I'm blessed that I was able to just make this, right?
Yeah.
That I didn't have to give anything away to have it made by a production company.
Yeah. So now the next phase is you screened it at the San Diego Comic-Con. Now you're going to screen it at the LA Comic-Con, right?
Yeah.
And that's a week or something from now?
Yeah. That's October 5th at 11:30 a.m. So if any of your viewers are going to be in LA for Comic-Con, we'd love for you to come by and screen it. So we screen it there, and then it screens again as part of the Newport Beach Film Festival, which I'm really excited about. That's going to be on October 24th. It's like a Thursday evening. And then, so those are the two upcoming screenings, and we'll have more as the year progresses.
So that's basically now is you're just going to basically travel around and do screenings for this, trying to get buzz and things like that in order to hopefully get picked up into a full series.
Right. So all the while this is going on, we're chatting with people, trying to get a distribution deal, inviting those people to come out. LA is obviously, there's a lot of influential people in this business in LA, asking them to come to the Newport Beach Festival. There might be a scenario where we do a small screening for people of influence in the industry. But right now, I only want it for anyone to see it. I want them to see it like in a live environment for the first 6 months, unless we get a deal. People ask like, hey, why don't you just put it online so we can see it? I just really want to kind of control the environment in which it's being presented. I've spent so long making it. You and I were talking before the podcast. So many people consume things on their phone,
yeah.
right? And it's like, it's difficult for me to imagine someone who's going to make a decision about the future of distribution for us looking at it on a phone.
Yeah.
When I know it can be shown 4K. We were talking about 4K editing before we did it. This is all 4K.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There also is the benefit of people that don't even know about this at all, and then they see it because via YouTube, it gets shared to them, all that kind of stuff. So there's that benefit of being the whole thing online as well. But yeah, I totally understand, like, coming from another creator, and being a creator and all this kind of stuff is, it's a fun journey for sure. I bet it's probably stressful as hell, but it's definitely probably a very, very, very fun journey. It's always fun to do like these big projects. Like I'm doing an album, so it's just like going on this journey, and then forever you can always look back and you have this. You did this.
Yes.
That's
yes.
That's why I tell people it's like it's not always about money and things like that. It's like you'll look back at your life and you'll be like, I did this.
Yeah.
This was done. I have this forever.
Yeah.
This is what I love about creative. From nothing, you created something. Literally from nothing. Nothing existed before this, and then you created it. Just like music.
Yeah. Thanks. And you're absolutely right. Going back to the 3 good ideas. So I was able to, with a lot of help from others, I was able to bring this to light. It's insanely satisfying as a creator. And the first time seeing it, you're like, just like you said, it's done. I have it forever. I don't know what's going to happen. I expect good things, but I have it. So I have to ask you, so when you talk about making your album, you're like, wait, Todd, I'm asking the questions here. So as you work on your album, I've seen that you have three songs on Spotify. They're amazing. So what are you looking for? You're looking for like, you want to make 10 songs before you put an album together?
So I actually have 3 albums on Spotify.
Okay. I apologize.
So I have 3 full-length albums, and then I have a remix album. But this will be my 4th full-length album that I'm doing.
Okay.
I do it basically every 2 years because I'm always writing. I'm never not writing.
Right.
It's just a matter of like, do I want to spend the time and the money to turn this into a full song to show people? Because it is very time consuming.
Yeah.
It's very time consuming because I do most of the stuff myself. I do have a band as well. And so it really, but like to get the exact vision I want, a lot of times I'll just do all the instruments and then I work with the band and be like, then we kind of, go back and forth until we settle on a path. But yeah, I'm probably going to release this next album I'm hoping in 2 months I'll get done with down to the last 3 songs, but the songs are like mostly done. I just have to do vocals on 3, and then finish some instruments on the last one.
Okay.
But,
Have you manufactured an LP?
Like a vinyl?
Yeah.
I have never done that because that's a lot of cost, and I don't even know what I would do with it.
Okay. Is that part of your dream? Like, how do you? So we talked about finishing it and saying, I have this, it'll never go away. What is that for you as a music creator?
As a music creator, the way I look at it is like music has given me so much. Like it's given me purpose. It gives me like hopes and dreams. It's given me like in times of darkness, it's given me like comfort. In times of having fun, it's boosted that fun. You know, you go to a party, you listen to a great song, you're in an even better mood. You know,
Amen.
Without music, I think the best movie scene ever will be half as good, because when you play a good song that's unexpected, I always think about, I don't know if you've ever seen Garden State.
I have.
Movie.
Oh yeah.
So there's a song by Frau called Let Go. And so it's a part at the end where he's running to get the girl.
Yes.
And that song comes on, and it just makes that scene so much better. So to me, the way I look at it, I just want people to listen to it. I don't care about making money. Like money is like, money would be nice so I can continue to make more music. That's all I think of it. But it's just, I just want to give back to music. One of the best things that I got was this. I don't even know how this random person hit me up on Instagram, and they're from Italy, I think. Yeah, Italy. And she goes, "My boyfriend's birthday is coming up, and you're his favorite artist." Which I was like, "What?"
Wow.
I know. And she wanted to know if I could send him like a happy birthday message. And she's like, "We bonded over listening to one of your songs."
Oh my god.
That's how they first met and bonded. And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, I was so blown away.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Do you want better?" I wrote him a custom song and sent it to him for his birthday, and she showed it to him.
Was it like a cameo video or just an audio song?
No, I just filmed myself and sent it through Instagram, like a video. I like emailed her, and so she like showed it to him, and they were both very happy, and they didn't even speak the language. And
Wow.
so like to me, like I'll always remember that. I'll always, like, I am not by any means a big artist at all. For me, if I could just go on tour and someone show up to my shows, like in a random city, I'd be totally happy. Like I said, I'm not trying to make money. The biggest claim to fame I ever did was I got my song on like a movie.
Okay.
And
what are you do?
It was on a trailer. It was on a trailer for a movie. But,
That's even better. Trailers are the best.
But it was I was like, or I got like $1,000 for that. But
Nice.
it wasn't even about like the money. It was just like, oh my gosh, my song's on a movie trailer, like a legit. It was the guy who plays Crossbones, Frank Grillo.
Oh,
yeah,
love that guy.
Yeah.
Also, I love Crossbones. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of remind me of him. Like you kind of similarly
That's
look like
high
him.
praise.
Yeah, so that was like, I was like, oh cool, it's like a real movie.
Yeah,
my song's on a trailer.
What's the name of the movie? You don't even know.
It's called There's the Night, or Here Comes the Night. It's about a movie where he has a son and they go see Rocky 3 together. I have no idea. I never watched the movie. A song was in the trailer for one of like 5 songs in the trailer. So
I have a homework assignment. I'm going to look that up first thing. You're a good dude, man. That you would write that song for that Italian. And you talk about emotions. Very emotional culture. Italians, Grillo, Gallina.
Yeah. And
you really delivered. That's really, really cool of you to be able. I'm sure they were just over the moon.
Yeah, and I think about it's like they probably have a very cool story. I hope they're still together. I have no idea. But that's the kind of stuff that why I do music is for those little moments, like to know that I could help someone through some type of issue or something they're going through in their life, whether it's a good time, a bad time. I think that's the reason to do music. Money is just a plus, but it's not why I would ever I'm here to make money. Like if I did that, I would be like, no, what? No. I would get nothing out of it. I do this because number one, writing songs is super therapeutic for me and I enjoy it immensely. Even now, I enjoy just as much writing a song from start to finish as I did. Like it's not waned at all, my enjoyment of creating something. So I imagine,
that's a gift.
Yeah, I'll do it till the day I die. I will never not create music. Now, my output might be slower.
Yeah.
But because things come up. But I mean, is that the same way with animation with you?
Yeah, I mean, well, let me I'll answer that question. But the music part, you're right. It is like the ultimate mood changer. If you're down, a song can change it, and vice versa. But I always have ideas, and I always like to sketch. I carry a sketchbook. And I'm always just doodling. focused all my energies. I promised myself that I would focus my energies on this project while it's going on. So almost everything I'm coming up with are new ideas. So the answer is yes.
Would you ever do a comic book?
I'm not good enough to draw. I can draw, but I'm not good enough to do a comic book. So if I were to do a comic book, it would be a similar model where I'd find somebody who's much better than me. There are so many sick comic book artists.
So just so talented. And the one thing I love about art is so even in music, there's a certain point where you like become a great artist where you can just like look at someone's art without seeing the name, know who it is. Just like a great band or an artist, I can listen to one chord, just one chord, and I'm like, I know exactly who it is. Never heard the song before, and I'm like, oh, I know who it is because they have a certain sound, they have a way they strum the guitar, like a really good artist has like a certain way that they strum it, just the way the chords are, the chords they use, things like that. And so it's like looking at like any like artist, it's like looking at Jack Kirby, right? I guarantee you, I can just pull up something you've never seen before, and if it's done by Jack Kirby, you're like, oh, that looks like Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Like exactly, and that's what a great artist. And it's like to get to that point would be the ultimate to where you have your own like exact style.
Yes,
like that would be very cool, and that's why I love looking at art. I love just seeing all these different comic book artists, and they have like their own style.
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh, that's how you draw Superman. Completely different from this guy over here. You know?
Yeah.
It's way different.
I have that skill set too. I can point out artists. I haven't developed it with music. You're
I can't do that with every band. Just ones I know really, really well. I'm like, well, it's like, okay, the thing is you go back to what you know and how you are. So it's like when I would write a song, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do these chords and I'm going to sing this melody and I'll probably put this instrument here, right? Because that's what I know and that's like my thing. Versus another artist will do like, oh, I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to have the drums do like that. And if you know an artist very well, it's like, oh, that's this person's song. I can already tell as soon as the song starts because that's how they arrange things. That's how they decide to play guitar, all that kind of stuff. So I'm a big Goo Goo Dolls fan, so I could pick out a Goo Goo Dolls song. Like,
oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then some of the artists, it's funny that when you go back and look at, how they started and where they're at, you can still spot it, but they always seem to be getting better.
Oh, I disagree. There's some people that get worse with age.
Are you going to name names?
Yeah. I think Frank Miller got worse. See, I don't know if it's worse or lazy or what. Also, Neil Adams, You're
right. Neil Adams. I think that was an age thing. I think he just
degraded. Gil Kane. Like, if you look at Showcase 22 Gil Kane versus towards the end, it looks like a preliminary drawing. And I don't know if that's laziness. They don't care. I don't know what it is.
Well, so let's talk about Frank Miller, if you don't mind, just for 1 minute. Because I noticed the same thing. When you look at what he did, I've been looking at his stuff forever.
Look at, like, Wolverine Limited #1 versus that new Wolverine where he has, like, those giant nipples, and it's just like, I'm like, what is this?
This might be what we were talking about with Primal, where I get the sense that he's trying to do as much as he can with the least amount of line work. I think he's trying to demonstrate, great design, great emotion with little. He won't do one extra line at all, and it's not to my liking. I'm with you. I just saw a Sabretooth variant cover that he did. And I was like, that's definitely Frank Miller. I know it is, but I like the old Frank Miller.
It could also be he's trying to be more like thought-provoking. Maybe like, I'm going to do something so horrendous that people have to look at it and talk about it, right? You go, remember that Spider-Woman variant cover by like some... I don't remember the artist's name, but it's not a traditional comic book artist. And she's like on the building with like her butt up and everyone.
Oh, it's like she's in a position that's impossible. It shows her front and her back all in one show.
Exactly. And so
I want to say the artist was Yoon, or something. I'm probably wrong.
But that, it's like maybe someone does that because then people talk about it, then it sells more. I don't know. There's that aspect of it. Maybe he's already thought like, I've proven myself as a good artist. I don't need to do anything like this anymore. I can do completely out of the blue stuff,
Yeah.
So I don't know what, or it's maybe his talent is gone. I don't know. Or he just
These
doesn't
guys,
have-
they degrade. You know,
Yeah.
you lose fidelity in your fingertips, and you still want to create. I mean, this is what happened with Kirby. It's interesting. When I saw Frank Miller at Comic-Con, he didn't look well.
When was this?
I want to say it was
He's pretty old.
yeah, it was before COVID-19, maybe the last one before COVID. He is old and he's awesome. He's great to listen to, but he didn't look well. I'll just leave it at that. I said to myself afterwards, I'm like, hey, he might be really sick. But so getting any Frank Miller is good, but I agree with you 100%. It just doesn't look anything like his old stuff.
Yeah.
But you look at like John Romita Jr., the people they criticize maybe what he's doing now compared to his older stuff, but he's in that same mold where he's saying a lot with very little line work, and I think it works. I'm a big fan.
There's also artists that change the style. Like Kevin Eastman's changed the style. Like his old Turtles is not the same as his new Turtles. Now, I don't think he's degraded in the fact that he can't draw anymore. I think he's just changing his style. For whatever reason, he's decided to do that. Maybe he's just wants to be different now. I personally don't like it as much.
Yeah.
But I can spot it a mile away.
Oh, Eastman, you know Eastman, right? It's funny, even though he's changed, we're talking about two artists that we think their stuff has changed tremendously, but we know it's them.
Yep, we know it's them. So, and that's the thing. Is like they have it there. So like being able to change your style twice, where you can recognize it both times, is also a gift of showing how talented they are.
Yeah.
And coming up with, and that's the crazy thing is, when artists come up with a new style that you know it's them and you've never seen before,
Yeah.
right? And that's interesting to me. I always love the artists that are not traditional. Like I consider Jim Lee like a traditional artist. Like he draws it perfect,
Yeah.
right? Perfect drawing,
Yeah.
proportionate. Everything looks, great, perfect, has style. But then the people I love are like Jock. That's like
Oh, yeah, that's
when
cool.
when it's just like not drawn, proportionate. Bill
Sienkiewicz.
Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
I always say his name wrong.
Yeah.
But like him, like I love like his artwork. Like it's not traditional art. It's just like out of the blue, weird, and like things like
Yeah.
their body. Like no body would look like that.
Right.
One arm's longer than the other.
Yeah.
Like I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and he's still doing it in a similar way. It's funny. I also like very expressive artwork, but there's an artist that I love right now, and his stuff is very photorealistic. His name is Keifu. He does. He's currently on Venom. He did a nice run with Christopher Cantwell on Iron Man, but very photorealistic, and I have fallen in love with him. He's from Spain. Have you noticed how many artists from Spain just freaking dominate? It's
I try to find good tattoo artists, and they're all not from here. I'm like, I want to find like a real, and I'm looking at Instagram, and I'm like, wow, this is so good. And then I'll look San Diego, and I'm like, I'll find, and I'm like, like I just can't justify getting more tattoos until it's like the tattoos I have in my mind. I'm like, okay, I just want someone really, really good. I think the thing with like Instagram stuff like that, it shows you how many like just like really good artists. Like when you're talking about photorealistic, I'll see someone that'll do like pencil drawings, and it looks like a photograph.
Yes.
And I'm like, how are you that good?
Yeah, amen, brother.
Like, it's one thing to like, I'm going to draw Daredevil, I'm going to draw him like in a weird way, and it's like, okay, that's art, and I get that. But there's another thing, it's like, I'm going to draw so technical and so perfect that with my little pencil, I can make this drawing look, or this, maybe it's not pencil, maybe it's ink or whatever, look like a photograph, like look like a real person. And I'm just like, I don't know.
I agree with you. I'm always wildly impressed with people who can do that.
It's just insane. But yeah, it was great talking to you. We should do this again sometime.
I would love it.
Yeah. And is there anything else you want to promote?
Well, so hopefully we're trying to get some Instagram followers. So that's at Force 5 IVE. I'm sure you might be able to show something.
Yeah.
Or put it in the show notes. And again, if you guys are going to be at LA Comic Con, please come by on October 5th, or Newport Beach Film Festival if you guys are in Southern California, October 24th.
Are you going to make plans maybe taking this out of the West Coast?
Yeah, for sure. It's very competitive, man. Film film festivals are extremely competitive now with the writer's strike, but we're going to make our way around. Absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, check out Force 5. I'll put a link of the trailer in the description of the video.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day.